If you know anything about Indian motorcycles, you know that they just released their Powerband Generation 2 speakers. So today we came on down to our local dealership. It is Indian Motorcycles, Panama City Beach, amazing crew. I reached out to them and I said, hey, I need to do more of an in-depth video on the Generation 2, so can I borrow your Elite? And I talked to them and they said, absolutely, come on down. So today we are putting the Generation 2 Powerband speakers to the test. You might be asking yourselves, well, how are you going to do that? So you can see right here, we have our microphone, which is hooked up to an RTA, and our laptop. So what my plan today is I'm going to put this to the test, and I'm going to put it on an actual meter and show you on the computer actually what this system does. And I want to preface this. This is not me comparing or going to be putting down the Indian Powerband or trying to compare it to aftermarket. This is simply, I'm wanting to show and put it to the paces to show you what Indian did as far as a OEM option for the bikes. I would consider this is their OEM plus. So what I'll say is all manufacturers, from cars, trucks, bikes, whatever, they offer an OEM system, which is what Indian does for their basic audio speakers. It's your 50 watt. So like the base models have 5 1/4, and the fairing for the Challengers, you can get the 6 1/2s, and they're 50 watts. So Chieftains, Challengers, Pursuits, Roadmasters, all of them have 50 watt speakers, self-amplified, all right? There's power units underneath the fairing. And then what they did with the Elite, which is what I would consider an OEM plus, is they upgraded. They doubled the power, so they're going to be louder, they're going to have a better sound to them, and this is their upgraded. Now when you go beyond that to aftermarket, I don't compare them, because when you get into aftermarket, you got more power, you got more efficiency. It's a completely different realm. So I'm going to preface this, I am not going to do a comparison video between these and Davidson Audio. I am simply comparing these to OEM. So hopefully later in some follow-up videos, you'll see us do more in-depth videos on the 50 watt speakers of the Generation 1 power bands. And I'll even try to see if we can't find something that has Generation 1 with a new bass boost tune to give you that perspective as well. My job here is simply to show you on the meter, on the laptop, what this system does to help you decide if you would like to upgrade to the Generation 2 power band. I will say, from listening in our last video of the Generation 1 to Generation 2, there is an improvement. There is an improvement over the stock speakers and the Generation 1 to the new Generation 2. They do have a better sound. They do have more low end or mid to them, as we would call it. Indian definitely took the opportunity and stepped it up. They definitely stepped this up. And what I am gonna be as bold to say is Indian is going after Harley and Rockford Fosgate's upgrade for the CVOs, because, you know, Harley has their basic, then I think they have the boom audio, then they have the audio powered by Rockford Fosgate. That is what Indian's going after. No manufacturer, Harley, Indian, doesn't matter, they are not going to be able to go after the aftermarket world. It's in its own class. It does its own thing. So I know I'm harping on that. It's just, I want you guys to understand, I am not here to compare this aftermarket. I'm not here to judge this from an aftermarket perspective. I'm trying to be here as unbiased as possible to give you all, the consumer, and to give Indian itself a good, honest, unbiased review of their speakers to help you guys make that decision. We have this little microphone right here. So this microphone goes to our awesome audio controlled DMRTA and it's hooked to our laptop. So we have software here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna play a pink noise. And what pink noise is it gives you the full broad spectrum. It will give you everything that the speaker will play down to and up to. So you've seen in some of our other videos where you'll see a speaker, it'll kind of like fall off at the beginning, it'll come up, you'll see some peaks and valleys, and then it'll roll off. That is what we call what the speaker will naturally play. A speaker will not play below that or above that. You can try to force it. Actually, let me preface that. You can force a speaker to play where it's not supposed to, but that's where you damage the speakers and that's where they end up being blown. So what I'm going to show you is where the speaker naturally wants to play, flattened EQ, nothing else. And then we're going to play with the EQ. I'll boost it, I'll lower it, and then I'm going to try to do an EQ curve that I would use on this. And again, that EQ curve that I set on this, it's not gospel, it's not the best. Everybody has a different ear, they have different music preferences, so it's up to the consumer. We set basic audio tunes on our packages because we send them all over the country, all different people, all different locations. It's onto the consumer to make those fine tweaks, and that's where it really comes down to. So let's go ahead, we're gonna get this playing pink noise and we're gonna do some tests on it and let you all see and hear the difference for yourself. All right, so to start this test, we are USB into the bike, and we will even go into here and show you. So your speaker layout, we have 100 watts in the fairing and the lids. This is the Generation 2 Powerband speakers, front and rear. This is a 24 Elite. It is 12 of 325. And we'll go back here. Our fader is into the middle and our EQ is 100% flat. So what we're going to do is we are going to first play pink noise through it to show you where that bass boost rolls in and what the frequency looks like here. So we'll play this for a few seconds and show you the natural curve here, and then we will talk about that. Now what we're gonna do is I have the EQ completely down. Everything is down, every single bandwidth. So we're gonna play that as well, and then I'm gonna boost everything up and see what that does as well. So as you can see, this is the same exact volume. We haven't done anything to it, and you can see how drastic of a drop that was. We're talking almost 12 dB drop, where we were up here closer to the 3 and the 125 range. Now we're all the way down to -9, and you can barely see anything else. So let's go ahead and boost this and see what happens. All right, so on this test, what we're gonna do is I have the bike's EQ set completely flat. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring it up each volume 1 through 11, and I'm gonna just show you the frequency response on that. And what I want y'all to focus on and what to look at is at what point does the Indian Powerband Gen 2s on the mid range, so that's gonna be like your 80 to 200 range right in there. Where does that get capped off at what volume? And then you'll see that'll stop, and then the other volumes will start to come up and eventually cap off to where it naturally stops. Now, I'm gonna preface this. That is not due to lack of quality or lack thereof of these speakers. All manufacturers, cars, trucks, motorcycles, power sports, it doesn't matter. All OEM systems and even OEM upgraded systems do that from the factory, because what that is there to do is protect the speakers. Speakers in that range are not meant to be taken all the way up and ran at that volume at all times. All speaker companies will naturally cap that off at a certain point to protect the speakers and to prolong them over the period of time. Now, when it comes to aftermarket, we handle that a different way. So I'm just gonna show you that now. We're gonna play pink noise through it. I'm gonna show you on the RTA what that looks at, and then we'll explain at what volume they cap that off at to protect these speakers. right, there's one final test that I want to do, and this is something to prove that I've had these conversations with people before. So I want to actually test the 63 hertz and the 125 hertz sliders. So what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to set them both at 0 and then at flat, which I'll show you, all the way negative, and I'm going to move it from that all the way up and back down on 63 and to 125, and then do them together. And I'm going to show you on an RTA what actually is happening. So we have the bike at volume 6. This is the first 6. I have 63, 125 at all the way negative, and everything else at flat. So we're going to play it and see what the RTA shows. That way y'all can see for yourselves what actually is going on. All right, this is just my attempt at a quick little EQ. According to here, this is what I would like to see on here as far as an EQ is concerned. I went -1 notch down on the 63 and the 125, half on the 250, left 500 in 1K alone, boosted 2K by 1, half on the 4K, and -1 on the 8 and the 16K. So volume 6. See what it does on the RTA. So our time here at the dealership, again, big shout outs, Indian Motorcycles, Panama City Beach. They gave us the opportunity to test their brand new 24 Elite. So again, thank you so much to them. Absolutely love the dealership. We've done a lot of business with them, and hopefully you'll see we'll do some more stuff with them. But I don't want to wrap this video up here at the dealership. I'm gonna go back to the shop. I'm gonna edit this footage, and then I'm gonna sit down, watch all of it, and make sure that I can break it down and explain it 100% to y'all, and then also make sure that I can edit it together and then explain what we were doing, why we were doing it, and showing you why Indian did what they did. And again, the EQ I set on this bike, how I did that is not gospel. That is not the best. That's simply what, if it were my bike, that's how I would run it. I'd tweak it a little bit over time, depending on the music. But we did play some music on this bike, and because of copyright stuff and me not having the other phone here, I didn't play that for you. But that EQ that's set up, I really like that. And again, huge kudos to Indian. These speakers are definitely an upgrade from OEM. These are definitely an upgrade over Powerband Gen 1s. So we're gonna get this bike put all back. We have the microphone and everything. We're gonna get it all cleaned back up, put it back in the showroom, and then we're gonna head back to the shop and get this edited. So I'll see you at the shop. Since we left the dealership, I've had some time to edit this video up and actually spend some time really going through the footage, taking some notes, which is why I have my notepad here, to sit down and go over a few things, because I want to make sure that I have the time to, one, review the footage, go back through it a couple of times, and really be able to explain like what was going on there, the equipment that we were using, to make sure that y'all know what we were doing, why we were doing it, to give you the best answers of, hey, do I want to upgrade to Gen 2 Powerband? I want to state this again. I'm by no means comparing this to aftermarket. I am not here to dog the Gen 2s or Powerbands at all. I'm trying to be unbiased. I know some people think that might be hard for me because we do aftermarket motorcycle audio. We are not a solution for everybody. There's plenty of people that, one, like the speakers that come in the bike stock, or are absolutely satisfied with the Gen 1 or Gen 2 power bands. I just wanted to take the time to really show what the speakers do on the RTA naturally, and what the Ride Command EQ does, to show you all exactly what's going on there, and to also show you the bass boost feature that they talk about as far as the new audio tune and what the new speakers do. Indian did a great job with the Gen 2s. And like I said earlier, they're going after all the other companies, especially Harley with their Boom Audio or the audio powered by Rockford. I want to say what Indian offers is right up there. Like, in my opinion, I think they have one of the best drop-in OEM Plus systems. So let's go over what we found. First, I want to define what the RTA is. And the RTA is a real-time analyzer. It's a professional piece of equipment that we use to measure the audio acoustic frequency. And as you saw in our video, we used the microphone. So we measured the audio signal audibly. So we played the speakers, a microphone picked it up, translated it, and put it on the screen. I say that because when we go to set gains or test amplifiers for power and what the signal looks like, we can hook that up speaker level. So we'll take our meter, the RTA, we'll run wires to the amplifier, and we'll take that signal directly from the amplifier into that without playing anything. So that's how we can check the signal from the head unit, which is the ride command in this example, or from the ride command through the amplifier and what that looks like. And then decibel is another important thing to know, which I'm going to read it off of here. It's a unit of measurement equal to 1/10 of a bell. In the acoustic side of it, it's a unit of sound power level or sound pressure levels. So that's where, you know, you'll see a lot of times the easiest part to relate that to would be like, hey, certain areas have a sound ordinance for exhaust and sound systems actually, to where the local city or law enforcement doesn't, you know, if you're over so many dBs, they'll pull you over, you can get ticketed. So in this example, when we were playing the music, our RTA was reading the decibels of it. Now, don't get so hung up on the where it was sitting at where we had it. I set the sensitivity of that and the scale of it to make sure when I raised it all the way up, it didn't peak up through, which it was hard to do because at that max volume, like I'll show you in a minute, the 120-ish hertz range shot right through the roof. It's 12 plus. Sometimes it's hard to set that scale up just enough to show you the movement all the way through. So that's going to bring us to my next point that I want to talk about. In the video, you'll see that we went from volume 1 all the way up to 11. And the reason I wanted to do that, and that was on a pink noise track, which I explained a minute ago, was to show where Indian cut the mid-range or the mid-bass frequency range to prolong life of the speakers, to save the speakers. And if you see in the video, right at 8 and 9 is where you're going to see that frequency range cap off, which is right about 80 to 200 hertz. You'll see that hump. And once we got up to volume 8 and 9, it hung out there right at about 0 dB. And as we went up, you could see it fluctuates just a little bit between 0 and -3. So that's there to protect the speakers again. But what I also want you to go back and look at is, look at 250 all the way on up. Because once it dips or peaks out at that 80 to 200 range, it comes back down, get a natural little dip, but then right at about 250, 300, it levels out and then drops off on this high end, because that's, again, the natural part of that speaker. That continues to go up. And then eventually, obviously, max volume, it caps out and that's all you have. Now, with tuning, you can adjust your EQ on the ride command, the 9 bands, and help bring up some areas. But the biggest thing is you don't want your EQ off of an RTA to go like this, dip down, and then go like this, and then back drop off. You want, the biggest thing we try to do is we try to find a natural where it comes up, and then we even it off, and then let the speaker fall off. With some speakers, you're going to get that initial hump up, it's going to come back down, and then flatten it out, and then naturally let it fall off. And again, the EQ that I did in this video is not the one-size-fits-all EQ. Every person is different. Everybody likes their music differently. So that was just one I came up with. That was my bike. That's what I would roll until I went aftermarket. So the next thing I want to talk about is us having the EQ at 0, which is completely flat. Then we brought it down to -15, which I'm counting it as -15 because there's 3 major bars there. but it looks like there's 4 hashes in between, so it tells me it's gonna be 5, 10, 15. So we took it at completely flat, and you can see that, and then we brought it down to negative 15. When we were completely flat on the EQ there was two frequencies that I wanted to check on. So I picked some frequencies in that 80 to 200 range, and then I also wanted to watch 63 hertz. And this is for a reason, and we'll get into this again when we did another test, is that completely flat, the highest peak I saw was a roughly plus 3 dB at 135 hertz. And then 63 was at about -9. Because as you saw the bell curve, 63 is way down here and it goes up and peaks up and comes back down. So when we took the EQ and brought it completely down to -15 dB, that's completely down all the way across the board. The highest peak I saw there still was at 100 hertz and we were at -9 dB. So that fits onto par roughly of, that's a difference of 12, so almost -15, we're close there. But then when we go to 63 hertz, we saw it at -12. So we only saw a 3 dB difference between those two. Now on the flip side, we took it all the way to plus 15 dB, maxed everything out across the board. We saw a plus 9 dB at 135 hertz. That was again the biggest peak that we saw. And then 63 hertz was back to -9 dB. So even boosting that frequency brought it back, or wait, no, hold on, we're at -7. So it changed it 2 dB, maxing it from -15 to plus 15. There's not much increase there. And once I explain the rest of it, I will tell you why that is. So the last test that we really did was we focused on 63 and 125 hertz. Why did I do that? Because that's where all your mid bass or bass is going to be. So a lot of people, like when you put a subwoofer in a car, you're usually going to high or low pass it at 80 hertz or 100 hertz down. What that means is you put pretty much a wall, an angled wall at 100 or 80 hertz and only allow things below that to play, which is where all your bass frequency is. So when we took both those frequencies and brought them down to -15, 63 hertz was at -9 and 125 hertz was at -3. So again, that's where that bell curve comes up. There's about 6 dB difference between the two. But when we boosted it all the way up to 15, 63 only went up to -2, whereas 125, as you can see in the video, pegged out above 12. So that's a substantial difference, and that's a difference of 15 or more change. So from that, what you can see is from completely -15 to all the way up, you're only getting 2 dB difference in 63 hertz. But when it comes to 125, you're seeing that much higher of an increase. Now let me explain to you why that is. There's gonna be 2 major factors into that. One is going to be the size of the speaker and the construction of it. 6.5-inch speakers, unless they're specifically designed to handle that lower frequency, will not play that low. As I said earlier, side note on that is, yes, with the DSP, you can manipulate it and boost it, but it's not good for the speaker or the equipment. It will cause damage and failure. So when you saw us originally play that pink noise you saw, with no crossover, that speaker naturally started rolling off at the 120, if not 140 range, and started rolling off. And then you saw it dip down and mellow out and down, and that's due to the construction of the separate tweeter and how that plays. So the 6.5 is just not designed to play 63 hertz. That's why you saw when we boosted it up and down, that's a 30 dB difference. That's not a small increase. We only got 2 dB difference. Again, it's because that speaker's not designed to play that. Now, when you go to 125, which is right at that crossover point of most 6.5s on the market, especially a coax like that, that's where the speaker is naturally going to start falling off. So that's why you see at 120, you see such an increase. And then also in the construction of the speaker, Indian or whoever makes these speakers could have put a crossover on there to protect that 6.5 below 120 hertz. So that's why I always tell people that when you're looking for more mid-bass out of these systems, the answer is not to boost 63 hertz. It literally does pretty much nothing. We proved that in this test. Now, if I change the sensitivity of the RTA, yeah, I can show it has more, but again, depending on the scale, it's going to be, it's going to shift the same amount. 30 dB, 2 dB difference. That's not a knock on Indian. It's a very smart move because the speaker 6.5s, again, are not meant to play 63 hertz. Unless, and I know the argument's going to happen, well, people make 6.5-inch subs. Yes, they do. That is a subwoofer. These are component style speakers. 6.5-inch mid-range and a tweeter separate. That's not a subwoofer. We'll get into speaker construction later in a different video. So EQ that I set, that's just something that I would set for myself. I would rock that for a while, and I would tweak it as I go. If you want to try that EQ, see how it sounds, more than welcome to. I'm open to feedback. Be like, I wanted to adjust it this way. Definitely leave your comments below on what you guys set your EQ to, because I'd be curious to see what it is. And next time I get my hands on a bike, I'll put it on there and see how it sounds, because EQs are going to be person specific and music specific, phone specific. There's so much, we'll get into that in a whole another video. The whole point of making this video was I wanted to show people what these speakers do on a meter. There's no lying on the meter. Yeah, you can change some parameters, but I wanted to just make an unbiased video. In my 100% honest opinion, the Gen 2s sound great. I like the Gen 2s. Now for me, being the way I am with my music, I would still upgrade them. And you've seen in our previous video, we've already upgraded one. We've upgraded audio or power bands in the past. That's not a knock on Indian. I've owned multiple newer vehicles. Like I had a 2019 F350 with the B&O system. I've had Fords with the Sony system. I still upgraded them because I wanted more, which we'll get into more of that. That all comes down to the specs of the speakers, amplifiers. So for another video, again, I know I'm referring to a couple of new videos, but again, Indian did a great job. From the other bikes that I've ridden, I think Indian by far is going to have the best OEM plus audio system on the market. And again, I am so thankful that Indian is actually taking customers' feedback, what they're seeing online, and they're pushing the envelope. I just hope, as Fred Fisher said, competition breeds innovation. By no means am I competing with Indian, but I'm hoping what we're doing is pushing the envelope and is going to help push Indian to create something more and more and more. And I would love to see where they take this stuff. So yeah, I know this video is a little bit long. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. And again, we will be doing more videos with either the OEM speakers, the first gen, second gen. As we get our hands on more and more of these bikes, I want to do more videos of them. If you have a bike with a different setup like Powerband Gen 1 with the bass boost tuning, you're close to us, we would love for you to stop by so we can put it on the RTA, mess with it a little bit, and help tune it for your personal preference. So make sure if you do have that or you want to bring your bike down so we can throw it on RTA, bring it on down, come visit us. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to play some of our bikes for you. And we'd love to get your bike on the RTA and see exactly what it's doing. So with that being said, I'm Brandon with Davidson Audio, located here in beautiful Panama City, Florida.